Sequences are a list of numbers, and the types of sequences that we're going to talk about today are arithmetic sequences. And arithmetic sequences are simply dealing with addition and subtraction. So all of our sequences are created by either adding a number every time or subtracting a number every time. A sequence, as I said before, is an ordered list of numbers. In the sequence, they are made up of numbers, and each number in the sequence is called a term. Each term has a specific position in the sequence. So, for example, A sub 1, that's how you read this, not A1, you read it as A sub 1. A sub 1 is in the first position. A sub 3 is in the third position. And then A sub n is in the nth position, meaning it's any random position that you want to ask for. In an arithmetic sequence, the difference between consecutive terms is the same, and consecutive means one right after the other. This difference is called the common difference. And the way that you find each term is by adding the common difference. Now, what if it's get a sequence going smaller? So you can add, but how could you add but really subtract? What would you have to do? Well, you'd add a negative. So you can also add a negative by doing subtraction, but you don't write it as subtraction, you write it as addition of a negative. So let's start out with just continuing the sequence. You have to find the common difference, meaning the pattern, so to speak, and then write the next three terms. So if you see the common difference is minus 7, which means that we're adding negative 7, but minus 7 every time. So the next three terms are negative 35, negative 42, and negative 49. When you graph an arithmetic sequence, remember I said everything has a position. So the position is n. That's how you would consider its position number. And then we want to know what that actual value is. So when n is 1, I'm looking at the number in the first position, which is 4. When n is 2, I'm looking at the number in the second position. N is 3, third position. N is 4, that's fourth position. Now you have a set of points that you can graph to create, well, let's see what it turns out to be. So I only have positive numbers, so I'm going to stay in the first quadrant. And I can't go by 1, so I'll go by 2s. 1, 4, 2, 8, 3, 12, and 4, 16. Now, I'm not going to connect these because sequences are discrete, because you can't have a number that's in the 1.5 term. Right? You'd never say, like, this is the first term, this is the second term, this is the third term, this is the 3.5 term. You would never have that. So since you can't have partial values here, it's discrete. So I'm not going to connect them. And what they're asking me is, what do I notice? I notice that it's linear. And arithmetic sequences will always be linear. So you'll know that you have an arithmetic sequence when they create a line. You can use the first term and the common difference to come up with a linear function for the sequence. So let's just make up a random sequence. Let's say it's 3, 6, 9, 12, etc. Okay. So position number 1, we said that was A sub 1. And the way that we will write it is A sub 1. And in terms of our sequence, the number that is in that spot is 3. The number in position 2 is A sub 2. And the number is 6. So my question for you is, how do you write 6 by looking at the first term? Like 3 plus what is 6? So that's 3 plus 3. So what they're asking me to do is write it using the first term and the common difference. So if you notice from my pattern, it's the first term plus the difference. The difference is adding 3 every time. I'll just write that to the side. D equals 3 because every time I'm adding 3. So this is the first term plus 3 plus the difference. Okay, here we go. Our position number 3 is a sub 3. And if I write it using the first term, a1, I want to know how to get to 9, because that's my third term. So starting with a1, it's 3 plus how many differences give you 9? 3 plus what? Well, it should be 3 plus 6, so that would be 2 differences, because one difference gives you 6, and the second time you use a difference, it gives you 9. Let's do another one. A sub 4, the number that I'm looking at is 12, and I want to know how to get from the first term all the way to 12. Well, that's 3 plus 3 plus 3. So that's 3 differences would get me to 12. So the first term plus 3 differences. So now I want you to look, and if you need to pause, pause, and I want you to tell me how we could figure out the number here, the coefficient of the differences. Remember, this is a 1, so I'll put a 1 here. How could you find the coefficient of the differences if you know the position that you're in? The coefficient of the differences is 1 fewer than the position. So if I want to find a sub n, it's a1 plus 1 less than the coefficient, 1 less than the position, times the difference. And that will give me any random term that I want. So let's fill that in where it says the equation for an arithmetic sequence. So a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times the difference. Now, I won't ask you to memorize this formula, but I will ask you to know what all the parts mean. So a sub n stands for the nth term. Remember, that's any random term that you're looking for. So if I'm looking for the 10th term, that will be a sub 10. A1 represents the first term. N stands for the position number that you're looking for. So if I was looking for the 10th term, that would be A sub 10. I would use N as 10. And D, we said earlier, is that common difference. So let's use this formula in some examples. Write an equation for the nth term of the arithmetic sequence. So they want me to write an equation. So I'm going to use my formula, and I'm going to write the whole formula out, and then I'll just plug in what I know. So I'm not here yet. I don't know this yet. I'm going to get to it later. They want me to find the nth term. So I don't know which term they're asking for, so it's a sub n equals. I know the first term, that's 14, so I'll plug that in. I don't know what term they're looking for, so I'll leave n minus 1. And the difference is negative 3. It's minus 3 every time. So that's times negative 3. Now, I'm putting the negative 3 in parentheses. You don't really have to, but you have to show that it's being multiplied somehow. So this is the equation that they're looking for. Now I will go to this other piece, and do what they're asking. The reason that I scribbled it out is because a lot of times kids read all the way through, which you should, but then they incorporate parts at the end of the equation or at the end of the question into the beginning. So I didn't know this before I made this equation. Now they want me to use it to find a sub 50. So I'm going to use my equation over here, but instead of n, I will plug in 50. So I'll shortcut all the math. When you do that, you get A50 equals, you might want to pause the video to see if you can do it properly, follow order of operations. That gives me negative 133 as my answer. So the 50th term in this sequence is negative 133. If you were to continue this all the way out to 50 terms, this is what it would be. Online bidding for a purse increases $5 for each bid after the $60 initial bid. Write an equation for the nth term of the arithmetic sequence. So that's this formula right here. And now I'm just going to plug in what I know. So AN equals A sub n. The first term is 60. It also tells me in the story the initial bid is 60 plus n minus 1 times the common difference, which is plus 5. So that's the answer to letter A. In letter B, the winning bid is $90. How many bids were there? So are they looking for the number of bids or are they looking for the bid amount? They're looking for the number of bids, so that's N. So 90 equals the formula. The formula tells me what to get as my bid amount. So since I know the bid amount, I'm going to look for N. So I'll drop a line, do my order of operations, get rid of the 60, 30 equals N minus 1 times 5. Now, I remember back in the beginning of the year, we did distributive property, but I'm going to teach you a trick. If you have this situation, you have a coefficient times parentheses, you don't have to distribute it. You can just divide by it. If you want to distribute, if it helps you, go for it. But for those of you that like to know shortcuts, I'm going to tell you don't have to distribute that 5. You can just divide it, as long as it's in front of the parentheses. And so N equals 7. So that means that there were 7 bids. If you have any questions, write them down. We will certainly do more examples in class, and I'll see you then.